And I just cannot fucking do it right. Alright. Let's go for a side op. Yeah, it's fine. So I've been putting sheets of 10 on the side of the cabin. I've been trying to start with the most pressing issue, which is definitely the 10 that's up top. One thing that I really want to do is cover all of the tarp. There is a tarp on the roof, and it's a blue tarp, so it's a shitty tarp. And tarps just naturally get weathered and fucking destroyed in relatively short order. I made this gigantic foundation for a cabin that I never did fuck around and do anything with. And I covered the whole thing with a tarp so it would be like preserved until I could get to it and finish working on it. And probably about a year after that tarp was done and over with, like, it was I'm trying to find all the rest of the blueprints, thinking that I might have missed some. There's a shitload of blueprints in Africa, but not so many in Afghanistan. So, just, you know, for construction purposes, I went ahead and I put a tarp up there so that I don't get rained on while I'm working on the interior of the cabin. And that whole exercise was sort of futile just at the start because, you know, like, it's gonna get rained on anyway. And plus, I'm not gonna be out there whenever it's getting rained on. So as a temporary measure, I put that damn tarp up. Just a temporary thing. So the tarp was a real temporary measure, but I'm not gonna like rip it up either. So, although it's supposed to be temporary, it's just gonna be built into the system, you know, fuck it. But I want to at least cover it up because I know that it's going to like fucking fade away just like it did with the very first cabin foundation that I built and then never got around to finishing it. So at the very least, I want the damn tarp to be covered. However, it's kind of a tough task for a number of different reasons. See, the normal way that you build shit is, well, whenever it comes to like a building, a domicile, a shed, anything, The normal way that you build a building is first you throw up the frame. So I've probably done a broadcast about this before. You build a frame. A frame is, if you're doing traditional American stick framing, you'll have a 2x4. You'll have a board that has a standard size of 2 inches thick and 4 inches wide and about 8 feet long. That is the standard building block of buildings in America. That's it. So you'll take one of those boards and you'll lay them down horizontally, you know, sideways. Looks like the letter E, like laying on its side, you know what I mean? And then after that whole thing, you cap it off with another horizontal board. So now it kind of looks like the bars of a jail cell, right? So that's a frame. That's all a frame is. Well, that's one wall of a frame at least. So if you put 6 of those together to make a cube, then you'll have the frame of a 64 square foot shed or building or tiny house or whatever that you're building. And that's your traditional frame. Here in America, that's your traditional frame that most people would be used to. So now what are you going to do? Well, you're going to now that you have your traditional frame, what you're going to do is look at all this bullshit. Wow. Must not have been very thorough last time I was here. So what you're going to do from there is cover it up, right? That's all. You're just going to cover it up. So in order to cover it up, you take a shitload of plywood and you put plywood all over it, or OSB, oriented strand board. Plywood is a tree that's been cut up into really flat pieces and then glued back together. So it's been cut up and pressed into really flat pieces, and now it's this big sort of rectangular flat piece. And so you just attach a bunch of plywood to it. And, you know, that's you're pretty much done from there, right? But the plywood, whenever one piece of plywood reaches the next, you're going to have a gap in between those two things. And even though the gap may be very small, you put them very close together, they're touching in fact, that doesn't mean anything to water. Water will still get in there. And so will air and everything else that can fit in these tiny little gaps. So what are you going to do, right? What's your next big step? Well, you're going to do something to try to close those gaps and try to waterproof the building that you are building. So, on the sides of the house that you are, or the whatever that you're building, you'll put some sort of siding. So you'll put like vinyl siding, you know, so plastic siding that you see on a lot of people's homes. So you'll put vinyl siding on the side of it, or you'll take big sheets of tin roof and put, you know, 10 sheets of tin roof on this whole process. and those big sheets of tin will overlap each other. These big sheets of corrugated tin will overlap each other, and that overlapping setup will give you something where there are no weak spots anymore. Now, the sides of your building are covered. No water is going to get through. Air is still going to get through, but you know, at least you know that it's now sort of like waterproof and everything's going to be okay from here on out. Well, that's, you know, that's the sides of your building. What about the top of your building? Well, most of the time the top of your building is going to be covered with asphalt siding. And that asphalt, well, not asphalt siding, but asphalt tiles. And you're going to put them up there, nail them together, and whatever.
It could be just what we need to develop new weapons and equipment.
And that's the way that you're going to do it. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You can just keep on keeping on with those, you know, big sheets of corrugated tin, and everything's going to be okay. The beauty of this method is that the plywood is the last time that you really got to fuck around with knowing where the studs are, with using a stud finder or anything. And because you're nailing this plywood or OSB, oriented strand board, because you're doing that like directly onto the studs, like there's nothing in your way. There's nothing like blocking your view of the studs, so you don't even need a stud finder. You can just nail the damn studs to the plywood. Then, on the inside of the building, in between the studs, in between the sticks that you use to make the stick framing, you'll just shove some insulation in there, and then put plywood on the inside, or rather, drywall on the inside. And that's your standard American home. Well, what is the step that I skipped? I skipped the step about plywood, because plywood, OSB, all of it is fucking expensive. And there's a lot of people that do that. It looks like everywhere that I look, my grandfather also skipped this step whenever he was putting together pretty much every shed, every barn, every structure that he has, with very few exceptions. He just nailed or screwed the corrugated tin directly to the studs behind it. And that's something that you can do. But whenever you do anything else besides these, like let's say for the purposes of working on the inside of the building, you covered the studs with house wrap. Now you've got a barrier in between you and the studs, and it's hard to find the studs, right? Now there's something that's hiding the studs. Whenever you're using irregular pieces of wood instead of the 2x4x8 studs, so you're just using whatever the hell you can find, then you've got like a log cabin. Like logs are like fat in the middle, right? So maybe you can screw in some plywood on the outside of logs, right? You can just screw it into the fat part, but trying to find the fat part whenever there's something in your way is a fucking son of a bitch. It's a pain in the ass just to try to find that, you know, like rooting around for it. And like I said, you've got situations where you're rooting around trying to find there's something underneath of it, but that's not a situation that's happening whenever you have a damn whenever you just do it the traditional way. You just take the 2x4x8s, you put them in a frame and repeat it as many times as you want. You make a sort of box out of it for somebody to live in, or for you to put stuff in, or whatever. And then once you're done with that, you cover it in plywood. That way, you never have to look for fucking studs. Everything is going to screw into the plywood behind it. So all of the siding is going to screw into the plywood behind it, and all of the everything, it's going to screw directly into these things. And sure, it becomes a little bit more difficult on the inside of the structure, but that's whenever you whip out the stud finder and you can pretty easily slap up some drywall in your home. The fact of the matter is that these things are expensive. Drywall is cheaper than plywood, but it also won't hold anything. So you can't put drywall on the outside of the building. Whenever it gets wet, bad things happen. But on the inside of the building, you can sure as hell do something like that, and it'll be a lot cheaper. But even if you could put it on the outside of your building, you'd be up the creek without a paddle, because it doesn't hold anything. You can't screw things into drywall. You have to use things like the Mighty Hook and stuff like that to sort of, poke a hole into one side of the drywall and then have a little funky thing to sort of hang things on the drywall. Or you got to whip out that stud finder and you got to hang things specifically on the stud and stuff like that. That's your standard American thing. But since I skipped the part where there was, where I had the opportunity to, put drywall and stuff up, because I skipped that part, I made it infinitely fucking harder for myself. All the things that is in between me and the stud make things out of pallet wood. And you can fairly easily make things out of pallet wood. Or rather, pallets themselves. Taking pallets and then busting them apart to get the pallet wood, it can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. And a lot of people don't like that step, and they don't have to, You can, in fact, just make a building out of just fucking pallets. Just lay it on its side, and then stack them on top of each other. Like, do whatever. It's a relatively simple thing, especially if you're making something that's just not that large. Then it doesn't need to deal with the weight of multiple floors or something like that, which is what construction grade equipment is all about. It's rated for whenever you are dealing with traditional American construction. These construction materials are rated for like multi-story buildings and stuff like that. So if you're not making a multi-story building, then these very expensive, while they may be cheap individually, you can get like a 2x4 for like $2. If you get 8 of them to make one wall of your traditional American, frame, you buy 8 of them, and suddenly that's $16. You buy, 6 of those to make a cube, a floor, a ceiling, and a floor, a ceiling, and 4 walls. That's 6 times 16. So suddenly you're spending, what is that?
You gotta extract him.
Well, 10 times 16 is 160. So 5 times 16, it's $96. So now you're spending $100 just on the frame. Then you start looking at plywood prices, or oriented strand board prices, all of the above. And you're looking at like a 2x8 sheet of oriented strand board, and you're like, holy shit, that costs like, $20 per 2x8 or 4x8 section of oriented strand board or something like that. And you're like, I need 2 of those per wall, so that's like $40 a wall, and you're still not done. You still have to put siding over it, so you have to buy the vinyl siding. You have to figure out how to install the vinyl siding. You have to do all this bullshit with the vinyl siding. And you're still in the buy phase of the construction project. It's a fucking pain in the ass. Well, first, right? So one thing at a time, you would, one thing at a time, like each time that you get like $2 extra in your bank account, you'd buy like a stud. And then eventually you would have enough studs. And every time you get an extra $20 in your bank account, you go ahead and buy a, you know, a thing of OSB or something like that. And that's all fine and dandy, like, if you're not on a fixed income, you know, but you try to take all of that as a policy and compare it to somebody like me who's making like $50 a plasma donation, sometimes a little bit more, probably about $120 a week, something like that. And suddenly you start ballooning it out into a full-size building, you're pretty soon going to reach an unreachable price. A price which is just outside of my price range.
He's coming too. Roger that.
You are either going to pay for a building with time, or you're going to pay for a building with money. Either way, there's only one thing that you can be absolutely sure of. And that is, building a house doesn't take 30 years. Paying off a house whenever you got a mortgage takes 30 years.
Subject on board.
And something like 70% of people just go ahead and move at the 7-year mark.
You gotta extract him.
So very few people ever pay off their mortgages in the first place. It doesn't take 30 years to build your own house. So it's still a worthwhile investment. But all of this is much, much easier to do whenever you've got something like, you know, whenever you've got these more traditional materials. You're paying for ease of use. You can go out in the forest and build, you know, your... you can go out in the forest, chop down trees, and then build your house for free.
He's coming too. Roger that.
That's what the Townsends did on the Townsend YouTube channel. And yeah, they had a lot of volunteers and everything to help them out. But that is something that you can do for free. You can just build a log cabin. But whenever you're taking your these 2x4s and everything like that, you're paying for convenience. You're paying for ease of use. You can do everything from start to finish, you know.
You gotta extract him.
You can do the whole thing where you're not just building the building, but the tools themselves. Instead of using a hammer, you're using a fucking rock that you tied to a stick yourself. But it's much, much, you know, cheaper and easier to just go and get a hammer. If you start weighing out your life in dollars per hour, then you start to see how difficult that this can really become. That's one of the things that the channel How to Make Everything really focuses on. So it's like, you know, look, I'm going to tie a rock to a stick and I'm going to make a hammer. It's like the average price of a hammer is like $2 or some shit like that. It's like, you know, that's, if you're working at minimum wage, that's like 15 minutes of work at Walmart or some shit like that, or wherever. And he's like, you know, it's not a big deal, but it took me this many hours to go and put together this damn hammer. And if you were working minimum wage, it would it would take you this amount of time to do all this shit. So by saying all of that, he's putting his time in terms of dollars per hour and giving you an idea of how sometimes doing absolutely everything from scratch isn't fucking worth it. Do you appreciate things whenever you do it from scratch? Maybe. On Tinker Air Force Base, whenever I was stationed there, we had an auto body shop on the base. And that auto body shop, had a thing on it where where you could just pull in. If you pulled in your car, there was like 2 mechanics working there, and they would tell you how to fix your own car and let you use their tools. So, simple and easy. They would do all of that for free. So I went in there whenever I needed a fuel injector in an old Nissan Altima, I think is what I was driving at the time. So I was wearing my best clothes. I was ready to go to the club after I was done, you know, fiddling around with this damn thing.
Subject is in.
So I was wearing my best clothes, and not only did I get covered in gas from the fuel injector and that whole process, but I also got covered in oil because I had to like move the oil thingamajig out of the way, and I had to drain the oil, so I got covered in oil and gas. And so like my best clothes were ruined, and like the mechanic said, you have to take off your clothes and you have to throw them away, because if you put those in, you know, a laundromat or a traditional like washer and dryer, the dryer will, you know, get hot enough to ignite the various forms of oil and gas that you've got all over your fucking body. Like, those clothes are ruined. And like after I got the part and everything and got back there, it still took me 8 fucking hours to do this whole process. And they were yelling at me the whole time because the oil got into the gas can and the gas got into the oil can, and so they couldn't take the oil and put it in the oil thing, and they couldn't take the gas and put it in the gas thing. They're like yelling and screaming at me. I'm like, what the fuck was I supposed to do? I was doing exactly, you're here, you've been here the whole fucking time. Like, I did what you fucking told me to do, and it didn't work. So what did I learn from that experience? Did I feel a great amount of pride whenever I got done? Was I more appreciative of my vehicle? Did I never take my vehicle for granted ever again after that? Did I, you know, wake up? Did I go to sleep that night like a baby and wake up the next morning feeling proud to be me and just love myself? No. I decided at that moment that it was never going to be worth it to not just pay a mechanic to do it for me. At that moment, I made that decision. Now, have I stuck to that decision? Not really. But I also don't have a choice, right? I'm, you know, broke as a joke, kind of on a fixed income. It's like not even. Because I have to go and I have to bleed, and then I get paid for, you know, donating plasma. So, if I don't have the money, then I gotta go spend the time, right? Those are my choices, time or money. One or the other.
Get down. Spit it out. Where are your friends?
If you want a good hearty laugh,
Subject on board.
search up on YouTube Demo D, like Freedom Sheep or something like that. Just search up Demo D Sheep. They're fucking talking about Psycho Mantis and Vulcan's flight again.
Он отправил ее еще до вылета. Просто она только пришла.
Точно. Еще док от...
Не делай этого!
Get down. Spit it out. Where are the others? Get down. Speak. Where are the others?
But it's a compilation of all the gameplay with Demolition D Plus from YouTube trying to do this exact setup, and it takes him ages.
Spit it out.
And he cannot find this lost sheep to save his life. Which is fine. I've seen plenty of people complaining about this exact setup because of that exact reason. They can't fucking find the sheep, and there's no information on it. And interviewing or interrogating these guards does fuck all for you.
Как ты? Не делай этого!
Talk. Where are the others? Micah. Talk. Where are the others?
Кто-нибудь снимите меня! Снимите меня!
He's coming too. Roger that.
Что? Что такое? Солдат упал! Я не хочу умирать!
Where are the others? Get down. Speak. Where are the others?
So, currently, on the top of the cabin that I'm building, I have a tarp, but on the sides I have tar paper. I have a shitty blue tarp on the top of the cabin, and tar paper on the sides of the cabin. Those things do not allow you to screw things into them. They do not allow you to
Where are your friends?
they do not allow you to do fucking diddly dick. And now there's a tarp in my way whenever I'm outside of the cabin trying to screw things into the cabin. There's this fucking tarp in the way, and now I can't see the studs underneath. And the studs underneath aren't even studs. They're a pallet. So the whole thing's a nightmare of my own creation. So for tar paper, you can use tar paper as the outermost layer of whatever you're building. It's called a tar paper shack, and it's relatively common. Or at least it was relatively common at some point in time to just have a tar paper shack. So you can, in fact, just go ahead and have a tar paper shack and then move on with your life. That's the outermost portion of your home is tar paper. Somebody's yelling about an attack even after I took over this entire place. So did they walk into the village from the way that I just came from, or did they walk into the village from the north? My guess is north, because I didn't see them whenever I peeked around south. Okay. Okay. That's the general area that they're investigating. Here's at least one of them. They're not wearing the radio getup. This is weird.
Speak. Where are your friends?
They look like reinforcements, but they never called for reinforcements.
Talk.
Where the fuck did these guys come from?
Where are the others?
Did it just mislabel that I had taken over this place? It prematurely told me that I'd captured this outpost? I don't know what the hell happened here. Anyways. So, there's a tarp on top of the building, and it also stretches over the sides of the cabin that I'm building. And I didn't put any plywood on it because plywood's expensive and I didn't see any other way around it. So I covered the thing in rainproof coatings, but besides doing that, you know, I didn't do much else, and I didn't do myself any favors whenever it came to trying to screw or nail things into the studs underneath all of this.
I'm sorry, boss, but the extraction failed. The support unit just isn't skilled enough. If you want to increase the success rate of Fulton extractions in bad weather, you need to improve the support unit.
Okay. I just gotta find sheep. Sheep is like in the middle of the village somewhere. Middle-ish. It's like in a little sheep's pen thing. It really sucks because I could fail this side up for the exact same reason that Miller was just reminding me of. I only have a 90% chance to extract the sheep successfully. Right now it's like a 0% chance because of this damn sandstorm, but it's around here somewhere. It's in this little animal pen. Whenever somebody's paying tens of thousands of dollars to get their sheep back, the diamond dogs are on their way. Don't you worry about a thing. Like over here somewhere. So I'm trying to, at the very least, cover the blue tarp on top of the cabin. That's all I'm trying to do. At the very least, I want to cover the blue tarp on top of the cabin. And it's stretching over a little bit on the sides. But whenever I do that, what I should have done, yet again, this is a nightmare of my own fucking creation. What I should have done is did siding the way that you're supposed to do siding, and you know, do siding on the bottom of the cabin and then build up towards the top. Each layer of 10 corrugated siding, each layer would be on top of the previous layer, you know, just overlapping it a little bit to create a sort of shingle effect. and that shingle effect would shield my cabin from the rain. Everything would be okay. But instead, I covered the top of my cabin, figuring that I could do whatever on the sides of my cabin. I could just put like wood shingles there or whatever. I just figured that it really didn't matter all that much. But whenever I started trying to put wood shingles on, I realized I was going to use up all of my wood. So I started salvaging corrugated tin roofing from around here. My family has gone through 2 entire mobile homes out here, along with the shed that's on the property and everything else that's on the property. So if I would have worked from the ground up, then each layer would have just been on top of, you know, the previous layers. Each layer would be overlapping, creating this shingle effect, and everything would have been fine. But instead, I decided to do something different on the sides than I did on the top. And so now that I know that that whole wood siding project isn't going to work, because I'm going to run out of wood before I get done with it, now the only recourse that I have left is to, you know, take this this salvaged, you know, corrugated tin siding, and then try to shove the edges of the salvaged 10 corrugated roof siding, shove the edges underneath. There it is.
That's the target.
So I have to try to shove the edges of the corrugated roof, the corrugated tin roof siding, underneath the layer on top of it. Okay. So I was successful at the very least.
Roger.
And trying to shove the edges of corrugated roof siding underneath the layer on top of it so that I can continue this sort of siding effect where the water runs off the top layer and onto the bottom layer without fighting gravity and, you know, working its way up the bottom layer to get into the building that I'm constructing. Shoving that damn thing underneath there is a pain in the ass. All of this corrugated roof is salvaged. It's all bent out of shape. That's not the way that you're supposed to fucking construct it in the first place, but I'm a moron. And like, so I just sit out there, like, and I'll get one side of the siding underneath the siding on top, and I'll be trying to worm my way over on the other side of the siding, trying to cram it underneath the one on top, and then while I'm trying to worm one side over, the other side pops out. I even cut one right down the middle because I was getting one side into it and I wasn't getting the other side. So I fucking cut one down the middle and then inserted both sides individually, and that worked for one tin sheet, but it didn't work for the next tin sheet. Like, what an unbelievable fucking pain in the ass. And so I'm like, well, let me just abandon this, and even though I'm going to, I'll run out of wood if I do wood siding throughout the majority of the rest of the structure. I can, at the very least, you know, put wood siding over the blue tarp that's on top of the cabin. But no, I've been doing vertical wood siding. Horizontal wood siding is easier to understand. You're overlapping boards of wood, and so that's easier to understand, but vertical wood siding is just plain easier to do. You don't have to get all the way down on the damn ground and then put these, you know, things up and then stand all the way up over time, slowly but surely, and then do it again for the next thing. All while the boards that you're using are all irregular in the first place because you don't have 2x4x8 standardized boards or studs or stick framing. So you can't put them directly next to each other. So it's like, it's compounding. It's one pain in the ass. It gets compounded to the next pain in the ass, which gets compounded to the next pain in the ass. It's like, holy fucking shit. Like, the nightmare never fucking ends, man. What the hell am I supposed to do? So this whole, like, you know, vertical wood siding, I can put like a board underneath it, but there's also nothing that the board can screw into because the pallets are the walls. The roof is made out of logs. And they're not even like fucking straight logs. They're whatever I could find that could span the length of one wall to the next inside my cabin. So searching and trying to root around for them so that I could put a nail through it is a pain in the ass. And as a cherry on top, for that specific purpose, I went out and I spent money on a new nail gun. I got it from Harbor Freight. I got a 2-year warranty on it. So this time, whenever my nail gun breaks, like my last one did, I won't even have to have a receipt. It's going to be tied to the phone number that I use whenever I purchase the product. And I can just go in there and say, my new nail gun is broke, give me a new one, and they will. And everything will be fine. And I'll be able to do that for a minimum of 2 years. And it cost me over $200 fucking for the cordless nail gun, and the battery, and the charger, and the nails. Well over. It was like $240, and that put me in quite a sour mood yesterday, as you might imagine. Spending 300% of my fucking paycheck, if you could call it that, at one. Even cancel out of this menu so I can hop off this thing. Instead, they're just going to make me stare at this screen while it slowly loads. Fantastic. I love it. 10 out of 10. Give me more. More of that, please. Even this internet, which comes from a hotspot that I borrowed from the library, this internet, which is fast enough for me to stream, to broadcast. Even this internet is not enough. These motherfuckers are going to start to talk to each other, and that's going to cover like 180 fucking degrees. It's not bad if you use consecutive CQC.
Where are the others?
You can just knock both of them out, lickety split. You know, I like to hold these people up. It's slightly more difficult, so it's slightly more fun.
Subject on board.
To me, in my opinion. And keep the gameplay fresh after 10 trillion hours of playing this game. I may have told you this before, but I purchased this game like 4 times. Whenever Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain came out in 2015, I purchased it for the PlayStation 3. That was all I had. Then, later on, they came out with Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain on Steam, and I finally had a computer that could play it. So that's what I attempted to do.
Hands up. On the ground. Talk.
Holy shit, that was close. Almost.
Hands up. Speak. Where are your friends?
Everybody else, come towards the center of the base so that I may capture you that much easier. Please and thank you. All personnel,
Coming too. Roger that.
report to the middle of the base where you can be much more easily captured.
Subject on board. Leave the rest to us. You gotta extract him. Either destroy that or turn it off to shut off all the lights and surveillance cameras in the outpost. But of course, the enemy will realize something's up. If you're gonna do it, be
Holy fucking shit.
On the ground. Spit it out.
That was fucking incredible.
Where are the others?
That was some like World War II style shenanigans.
Get down.
You ever read the story of the guy?
He's coming too. Roger that.
I know he was an ally. I just don't know if he was a American or British soldier or whatever. But there's this guy. He was running around with his standard issue submachine gun,
We're gonna extract
and
him.
you know, going around a town occupied by the Axis powers, probably the Germans, obviously. And so while he was traipsing about,
Leave the rest to us.
having fun, he rounds a corner, I guess without looking both ways,
He's coming too.
and whammo, there's there's an enemy. There's a whole like squad, platoon, battalion. There's a large gathering of German soldiers, and they're all, you know, standing there. So he rounds the corner, and they're all standing there, and they're all armed and in uniform and everything. So the guy is screwed, right? So he kind of looks at this situation, and he like looks down embarrassed, and then looks up and he starts laughing. And then like they start laughing, and they all kind of like let their guard down a little bit, and you know, everybody's laughing at this situation. This silly ally just got themselves, you know, captured. They're screwed.
Hands up.
So everybody's laughing and joking and having a good old time.
Spit it out.
And then like in the middle of this whole thing, with them laughing and joking and having a good time, the Allied soldier grabs his submachine gun and fucking empties the clip into this crowd of Axis soldiers, killing them all. That's a real fucking story. That really happened, as far as I know. A gaggle of Axis soldiers, by, you know, outsmarting them for certain, but like getting them to lower their guard. You know, they lowered their guard and they paid the ultimate price. They're dead, and he just fucking continued on with his mission. It's like he's still got a job to do, so he fucking started prancing around and continuing to fucking clear the town of enemy soldiers or whatever what the hell he was doing. It's like the man just went right back to work. And, I killed like a whole fucking bunch of soldiers all at once, and I did it by laughing.
Subject on board. Leave the rest to us.
Well, where are you? Where is everybody? I hear bullets. I don't see muzzle flashes or anything like that. Hopefully the game recognizes that I took out the communications equipment. Yes, it does. Every now and again it doesn't, and it just allows them to call for reinforcements anyway. You'd think that they would do like they did in Metal Gear Solid 2. Like whenever... In Metal Gear Solid 2, whenever the radio wasn't working, they just went and got reinforcements themselves. So they just ran off. What you doing, little kitty cat? What's my little kitty doing, huh? Having fun over here, G. He just jumped up on the bed with me. Dude, where the fuck is this last dude? I'm assuming there's only one dude left. I'm being noisy enough. Come out of your hiding place. Come play with me. Alright. Your friend isn't revealing themselves, so let me go ahead and give you an interview real quick.
Spit it out. Where are the others?
And now you leave the battlefield. Is that the guy I knocked out earlier? I think it is.
You gotta extract him.
Wake up, I gotta ask you questions.
Spit it out. Where are your friends?
He doesn't know where the last guy is either. Now he's been removed from the battlefield. Away he goes to safety. Welcome to Diamond Dogs.
Subject on board. Leave the rest to us.
It's chili dog night. Be sure to add onions and cheese. The combination is scrumptious. Really? Wherever he is, he's so far away he can't hear gunshots. So he's pretty far away from me. Where is he? We took out the two that was way over in the middle of nowhere. And now they're playing the caution music again. So now he's acting like he's seen me. Apparently I'm 10 o'clock from him. That doesn't tell me anything. requesting reinforcements again. It's gonna get told no again. The guy is far away.
Roger.
I want to make sure to get her out of here safely. Yeah, 90%. It'd be 100% if we just put her directly on the chopper. Where's this last dude?
Looks like the enemy's lost sight of you. They're gonna try to hunt you down.
CP can't come, can't get HQ on the horn. There he is. Where the fuck was he hiding? Don't have to worry about it no more. Whatever. Yeah, in Metal Gear Solid 2, in Metal Gear Solid 2, if you took out their radio, then they would just go and get help on foot.
He's coming too.
But everything was calculated room to room. So they could be going for help in one room, and then you'd be like in a whole nother room by the time that help arrived. And so everything was fine in this other room. But in this game, whenever they call for reinforcements come in on foot usually to wherever you're at. So, like, if they called for reinforcements here at Deshago Calais, reinforcements would arrive. 2 guys would arrive from Guard Post 25 here, and 2 guys would arrive from Guard Post 22. Leaving, 1 or 2 people to guard those guard posts, and these 4 people to help retake Shago Calais. So that's what they do, but they don't do the inverse. Whenever you take out their communications equipment, what they do not do is go manually get help. From those 2 guard posts, they send 2 guys each from those 2 guard posts, a total of 4 guys, and they will send them on foot, and they will run all the way over. There's no step in this process that gets skipped. They don't teleport here or anything like that. They come and they run over to reinforce the Deshago Calais on foot, but they don't do the inverse. You'd think if you can't reach anybody else by radio, then you would just send a runner to go do it. You'd go do it, on a... Send a runner to go do it manually. So something like that happened in World War II as well, and this one was reflected in the HBO series Band of Brothers. It was incredible. There was this engagement that the Allies were getting into, and I'm pretty sure it was Easy Company You son of a bitch! Quit trying to fucking
I'm
escape.
sorry, boss, but the extraction failed. The support unit just isn't skilled enough. If you want to increase the success rate of Fulton extractions in bad weather, you need to improve the support unit.
So, Easy Company was getting into some sort of engagement, and they were just one company. So, Easy Company was likely right next to, you know, Delta Company, which was right next to, you know, Charlie Company. So, Easy Company was probably flanked by Foxtrot Company and Delta Company.
Where are the others? Lie down.
D, E, and F.
Talk.
But their radio quit working.
Where are the others?
So in the middle of the firefight, they had a corridor to shoot in.
Talk.
So they have to shoot straight forward as much as possible. If they shoot sideways, then they might hit their own guys, which are also storming that general area. So that would be not good. And they can't get a hold of Delta or Foxtrot Company on the radio to see whether or not they can widen their bullet pattern. So this is a nightmare. This is an emergency. In the meantime, some fresh lieutenant has begun he's absolutely frozen on the field, and people are getting shot, people are dying. Like, it's bad. This is a bad situation. Half of his men are pinned down, and he's completely fight, flight, or frozen. He cannot figure out how to get out of this. Like, he does not know what the hell to do. So all this is going on. So they send in a fresh lieutenant that might be capable of dealing with the situation, and I think the guy was former enlisted as well. I think he was battlefield promoted to a lieutenant, but I could be wrong about that part. But they send him in to deal with the situation. He gets his guys out of being pinned. He retakes control on the situation, and after he retakes control of the situation and realizes that they don't know how far up the surrounding countries, and asks them in person. And he takes this fucking diagonal approach. It's the weirdest fucking thing in the world. He like runs like northwest essentially, and like through enemy lines.
Hands up.
And the enemy is so confused that they just fucking let him do it. He just runs in a straight, like, diagonal line to go speak to the soldiers of the neighboring company and figure out how far up they are. And maybe, if they've got one, grab a spare radio that's actually working, you know?
You gotta extract him.
And they, like, let him do it. And eventually, like, they snap out of it. This weird guy doing this really odd thing. Eventually they snap out of it and throw a couple of pot shots towards his back, but they don't hit him. And then eventually the motherfucker comes back on his own 2 feet. He has spoken to the neighboring companies in fucking person. He knows exactly how far up they are. And he fucking, like, comes back and he's like, this is their current position, so this is our current, you know, corridor of fire. And, like, literally everybody that's there, like, this is in the Band of Brothers HBO series. This moment in military history has been immortalized with this crazy motherfucker doing the wildest shit for king and country, for the world. you know, during World War II. This man is a god among men. He's a fucking legend. It's immortalized in history. So you can watch this moment portrayed by the actors. But it's fucking incredible. Like, nobody told him to do that shit. He just made a mad blitz to go talk to these people in person. So I guess maybe it was a pathfinding issue or something like that with the NPCs, and they just couldn't get the guards to go do that. But that was something that they did in Metal Gear Solid 2. You took out a guard's radio and he would just go get help on foot. You know, he'd just run over and they'd get help on foot. And whenever they radio for help from an outpost, the neighboring guard posts send like 2 guys, and they will go to the outpost on foot. They sprint the whole way. They just don't do it in reverse. It'd be cool if they did, but also, you know, Hideo Kojima and his team just kept cooking the fuck out of this game, and Konami was really pushing to publish this damn thing. So eventually they had to get this out, and sooner rather than later, so they could start to get a return on their investment. That's the way that they thought about all of this. And so they couldn't wait for him to program, you know, lunch schedules for every fucking guard around here.
Spit it out. Where are the others?
Have them rotate into the shitter and out of it on a regular schedule. Program how many times a Russian soldier shits every day. Because let me remind you that that was programmed in a Metal Gear Solid 1. The guards in the first floor basement of the nuclear warhead storage building, those guards would literally go and take a piss at regular intervals. So saying, like, you know, Kojima didn't get time to cook that into this game, you know, if they gave him enough time, he fucking would've. He would've. He's done it before, and you have no evidence to state that he wouldn't do it again. He will put functioning bladders into these guards if you give him enough time to do so. He has done it before, and he will do it again. Now, Hideo Kojima has said that this is a complete game. That this game is perfect the way that it is. And it is a complete game. It is his vision. It's everything that he wanted to do.
Where are your friends?
So that's coming from Hideo Kojima himself. But also we have all of the cut content. And not just Chapter 3 and the whole Lord of the Flies situation with Liquid and everything. But we have, like, the actual cut content. The fact that he wanted to put Chico into this game and he never got to. Lines of dialogue that got left on the cutting room floor, the actual model of the battle gear, and how it wasn't used in game, partly for balancing issues, but also partly because they didn't have the time to program all of this shit. Like, yes, he considers this game perfect the way that it is, but also we know that there's at least some cut content that he did not get to finish with this game. And that's very common with Kojima, because remember, this is the same man who had a deep desire to have the end boss fight. There's a boss in Metal Gear Solid 3 whose name is The End. That boss fight, he wanted it to last one real life week. That's how long he wanted the boss fight to last. And he was told, no, that's impossible by his team. He said, no, Mr. Kojima, that's impossible. We cannot do that. That's not something that can be done by human beings. To make a boss fight in a video game last one real life week. We consider Hideo Kojima to be an auteur, a genius, a mastermind, and at the end of the day, like, he didn't work alone, but let's not discount the fact that without Hideo Kojima, we wouldn't have all these Metal Gear games and everything like that. But if you watch, like, the documentaries and everything, like, of the development of the Metal Gear games, he sounds like a nightmare to work with. It's like they're trying desperately to finish programming Metal Gear Solid 2, but he's having half of the team work on the physics of glass bottles breaking. It's like, fuck me, dude, that has nothing to do with anything. In Metal Gear Solid 2, there was a portion of the team that was dedicated to making sure that ice would evaporate in real fucking time. And it made it into the final game. Can you imagine working for a man like that? You would pull every remaining hair out of your head. Whenever he's having like 30 fucking people work on ice melting in real time, like, what are you doing? Like, we're trying to make a game about military shit, and you're having like half of the team dedicated to making sure that ice in the game melts in real time. Like, what the fuck is going on? Why are you doing this? What is wrong with you? You know? The man sounds like a fucking nightmare to work with. There comes a time in your life where you have to choose between leaving a legacy and what you would do to do that. And it's like, oh, you know, I want to leave a legacy. I want, you know, something to be there and be appreciated by people for ages after my own death. And then you have to decide whether or not it's worth it, if in order to do that, in order to have that legacy, you would, like, you know, put your balls in a vice grip or something. You're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why you want me to do that. It has nothing to do with here or there. It's not necessary whatsoever. But you're the director of this game, so I don't have a choice. Like, you're either going to fire me now, or I'm going to put my testicles in this vice grip like you're asking me to. It's like, I don't know what the fuck is going on right now.
English interpreter operating in that area. If you extract him, he could be plenty useful for us.
There's hardly anybody that speaks Pashto in this game. but you do miss out on some conversations. So 2 things, housekeeping. To my right? Oh, I'm up on a hill.
That's the target.
See if I can do this number. Yeah, I can.
Talk. Where are your friends? Micah. Spit it out. Where are the others?
He's trying to go as a group. No fucking way.
On the ground. Talk. Where are your friends? On the ground.
So, housekeeping from the last broadcast. Number 1.
Where are your friends?
At the beginning of the broadcast, I spied on... Oh, this guy's floating up in the air. That's cool. He's supposed to be in the guard tower and the game doesn't know what to do. Once he takes like a step or two...
Roger that.
Yeah, so he floats back down to the ground. A shitty reason to give up your powers of levitation.
Where are your friends?
But sometimes that's the sacrifice that you have to make.
You got to extract him.
Where the fuck is he going? Guard this road barricade.
Spit it out. Where are your friends?
So at the beginning of last broadcast, I watched a conversation between 2 soldiers, the English to Russian translator and a common soldier. If you were paying attention, the only thing that you might have recognized was the English phrase, but somehow some hero managed to translate that entire sequence of events. Here's what had occurred in front of our very eyes. And I did not, of course, I don't know how to speak Russian. So,
Subject on board. Leave the rest to us.
so since I don't know how to speak Russian, I didn't know what the hell was going on, and I had to be informed by some random YouTube video much later on. But what had happened was one of the soldiers goes up to the Russian to English interpreter and he asked the question, you know, like, the Americans aren't fighting us directly. If I come across an actual American soldier, is there any phrase that you can teach me since you speak English? Is there any phrase that you can teach me that means, like, you know, like it's a greeting or something like that I can say to them to let them know that even though, you know, we're in a proxy war against one another, I'm personally friendly towards you. I have nothing against you. And the Russian to English interpreter goes, yeah, I've got one. And he says, well, what is it? And he says, repeat after me. I was with your girlfriend last night. So that's the English phrase that he teaches this Russian soldier. And so the guy repeats after him and learns the phrase. He says, yeah, it means that I greatly respect your culture and you're a great soldier and stuff like that. You know, Americans say it a lot to each other, yeah. And he's just, he's fucking with this guy, you know. You know what the hell is happening unless you speak, unless you speak both Russian and English. You would never understand that this thing even took place. And of course, since I don't speak Russian, I didn't understand that this took place until I found a random YouTube video that showed that little event. So that's what I was trying to show at the start of the broadcast, last broadcast. Housekeeping number 2. I began talking about the transformation of data into different pieces of information and stuff like that, which is common to those who are studying. It's all perfectly understandable for those who are studying information technology and the like, but for the rest of us, it's a little bit harder for us to comprehend. But I said, you know, Hideo Kojima likes to have people repeat information over and over again. And it's not because he thinks that you're stupid. It's because we really do require that information to be repeated over and over again for us to understand what the hell is going on. So the big twist in in Metal Gear Solid 2 could have been guessed at very, very early if you were just paying attention. He gave you all the pieces that you needed to put that puzzle together. So what he did was the beginning of, you know, spoilers for like a 20-something-year-old game, but at the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 2, you play as Solid Snake, the star of Metal Gear 1 and 2 and Metal Gear Solid 1. So you're playing as Solid Snake through what they refer to as the Tanker chapter, and at the end of the Tanker chapter, you come across Ocelot, who is one of the bad guys in Metal Gear Solid 1. Right now, in Mgsv, which happens before, long before Metal Gear Solid 1, right now in Mgsv here, Ocelot is our friend, but we're also kind of sort of playing as the bad guy. We're not doing anything bad, but that's part of the whole process. Like Hideo Kojima often will show you that even though somebody might even look from the outset to be cartoonishly evil, whenever you get down into the nitty-gritty of it, it turns out that they were, you know, a regular misunderstood sort of thing. Like in Metal Gear 2 on the MSX, Solid Snake goes to stop Big Boss in his country that he made himself, somewhere in Africa, called Zanzibar Land. And so, whenever he finally gets to Big Boss, you know, he has been told in his briefing that Big Boss has child soldiers, and that seems cartoonishly evil. But you get all the way to Big Boss, and he says, like, I don't have child soldiers. I just take care of children and shelter them from danger in my country that I made myself. So it's like they would die of starvation. If they weren't under my protection, they would die. They're not my child soldiers. You have not been fighting child soldiers this entire time. It's very, very clear and easy to understand that they are simply under my protection. I'm the good guy here, you've been given information that has led you to believe that I was the bad guy. Either way, we are going to have to fight. Like, I will protect my men and my people at all costs. And you are very much in the wrong here because you've been fed, you know, incorrect information. So anyways, the main character of Metal Gear 1 and 2 and Metal Gear Solid 1, you play as him in the Taker chapter of Metal Gear Solid 2, and at the end of the Taker chapter, you run across Ocelot from Metal Gear Solid 1, but he has 2 hands. And that's important because he got his hand chopped off in Metal Gear Solid 1. And he was not able to get to a hospital on time to reattach his hand. It's very clearly that's not his hand. So then there's a twist. He pretends to get taken over by the personality of the bad guy from Metal Gear Solid 1, which was Liquid Snake. So he pretends to get taken over by this, you know, by this personality, and he pretends that it's happening through his arm because he has Liquid Snake's arm grafted onto his stump, and so it's Liquid Snake's arm. All right, you following? Okay. So that sequence of events happens, and you are now at this point in time in the ridiculous premise that there's a possibility that a man's ghost is controlling another human being through his grafted on arm. And so you're just sitting there trying to figure out what the fuck is going on and what the hell the development team was smoking at this point in time. But whatever. So all of that is happening, and then that is whenever they have a fake out and they pretend that Solid Snake has died. Now pretty soon you come across a lot of consequences of Solid Snake's actions, and you come across someone who certainly looks like Solid Snake, all while you're playing as someone else. And this person looks like Solid Snake. He sounds like Solid Snake. He has the same fucking voice actor as Solid Snake. It's very obviously Solid Snake, but you don't know how the hell he survived and all of this, and he keeps claiming that he's not Solid Snake. And so you're like, I don't know what the hell is going on. So if you then radio your team and ask about it, then the guy that you're playing as, his girlfriend, will look it up. She's like the intel analyst or whatever for Metal Gear Solid 2. So she looks it up, she finds the information, she reads it out to you, and she says, you know, Solid Snake died in that tanker incident that happened 2 years ago in the game's universe. And so, you know, he died in that tanker incident. His body was even recovered, and it was positively ID'd. Like, that was him. That body had his DNA. Well, Liquid Snake was a clone of Big Boss, and so was Solid Snake. They have identical DNA. On a DNA level, they are essentially the same person. They are clones. So you know that whether they found Solid Snake or Liquid Snake, whichever one they found, a DNA test would say it was one or the other or both. And then the guy you're playing as a guy named Raiden, by the way. At that point in time in Metal Gear Solid 2, you're playing as this Raiden fella. Then Raiden's girlfriend Rose drops the bombshell. She says, she just says offhandedly. She says the body was found in the Hudson River, and it was the DNA test proved that that was Solid Snake's body. The only thing that we didn't find, she just mentions, well, he was missing an arm, but that's the only thing that we didn't find. We didn't find his other arm. And so, like, that's all that you need. That's all you need to know that that wasn't Solid Snake's body. If you've been paying attention, if you've played Metal Gear Solid 1 and everything, you've got everything in the lore that would give you the information that you need. That they swapped out that the body. So like I said, you know, Hideo Kojima is not necessarily repeating information over and over again to get it through our heads because he thinks that we're stupid. He's doing it because we as human beings actually do need this information repeated over and over again. If the clue is small enough, you won't get it. And that's the whole thing behind whodunits and, you know, murder mysteries and stuff like that. The author peppers all of these clues throughout the whole thing, and you've got everything that you need to, you know, put the puzzle together, but you still don't put the puzzle together. And if it's a good murder mystery, then you wouldn't have put that, you know, puzzle together. I was by far not the only person who, upon seeing...
You gotta extract him. Hands up.
Upon seeing the man on fire in the hospital, immediately recognizing that that is Volgin from Metal Gear Solid 3. Yes, I immediately recognized the man, and I was like, wow, you know, Volgin, you need to go back to sleep. It's like, you're supposed to be dead, I fucking killed you. Or rather, a bolt of lightning killed him, but all the bullets that I put in him probably